So this is a particularly unpleasant experience where I recorded a lecture and it was completely lost. About an hour and a half worth of lecture. So I'll record the first part of the lecture now. What we're going to talk about is the difference between class members, class variables, and instance variables. And maybe you already have a good grasp of that. Maybe not. Usually about half the class struggles with the idea. So I'm going to make a new project. This time I'm going to make it Maven just for fun. I don't recall if I did it that way last time. If you do it with Ant, it automatically creates the main Java file and creates a main method. You can call it lecture D. But if you do Maven, then it does not, and you have to add it by hand. So here's my lecture D. I'm going to go to Source Packages, right-click on Source Package, New Java Class, lecture D. It warns me not to put it in the default package, but I'm going to leave it in the default package anyways. All right. You will notice that there's no main method. Let's add one. Public static void main, parentheses, capital S, string, square braces, args, curly brace, in curly brace, right? All right. I know I'm going to use a scanner, so I'm going to add an import right off the bat. Import java.util.asterisk. Just bring in the entire Java file. All right, here's what I want to do, is I'm going to discuss the idea of class members versus static members using the metaphor of rooms in a hotel or a motel. It'll make sense as we go along. The way I want it to work is I want to be able to do this. Room R1 equals new room, parentheses in parentheses. And an R1.name equals Darth Vader, end quote. And then another room. Room R2 equals new room, parentheses in parentheses. And R2.name equals, quote, Han Solo, right? So we're going to build a room, we're going to add it to our hotel, metaphorically, and our guest is named Darth Vader. In the next room over, we have a guest named Han Solo. So let's go ahead and make that class so that we can get rid of the error messages. I'm going to go ahead and create it in the same file, like I usually do, when good programming practice is to put it in its own file. It can't be a public class since it's in the same file, which means that any other files in the same package would not be able to reference it. It would be a private class. Class room, capital R, open brace, close brace. We're going to only have one method. Excuse me, one member. Public string name. That's the occupant name. It is an instance member. That should have gotten rid of our little errors here. I'm going to build it just to make sure. Build early, build often. Going to take a while. Has to load up all the Maven modules. You know, ran pretty quickly because I'd already recorded the lecture previously, so the Maven modules are already loaded. Alrighty. So here is the idea. An instance member is one where every instance has room to hold different data, right? Room 1 has one occupant with one name. Room 2 has a different name. Room 3 has a different name. So every instance, every object can contain different data. Now a class member is one that is, this is not quite the perfect definition, but I'm going to go ahead and use it. And then I'll modify it later. A class method, a class member is one that's shared by every instance of the class. Every object will only have one of these, not shared. Okay, so here's the metaphor. We can have a bunch of rooms, but our hotel only has one pool. All the occupants will use the same pool. So we can have, 100 rooms, but just one pool. To make that work, we're going to make it a class member. So let's go ahead and record the name of the person who's in the pool. Another string. Public string pool semicolon. But it's a class method. Class member, keep saying member method when it's a member. Class variable. The other one, we could call it a variable. A variable is a member, so it's not incorrect to call it a member. To make it a class variable, we have to use the static keyword, which you've seen before, right? Every time we create a class with the main method, we use static. All of the rooms will access the same pool. So, which of our guests is going to go to the pool? Right? R1.pool equals Darth, or let's do quote, Darth Vader, end quote, semicolon. R2.pool equals quote, Han Solo, right? Now, we're just going to pretend that our pool is exactly big enough for one person. This is a class variable. Class variable is one that's declared as static. An instance variable is not a static variable. The consequences of this. Let's just look at the consequences. Let's watch what happens. Let's print out the values of the rooms and the names, and then the rooms and the pools. Now I said pools with an S, but really we only have one pool that's shared by all rooms. So let's print them out. System.out.println parentheses quote r1.name equals space in quote plus r1.name in parentheses semicolon. Now let's just do some copying and pasting so that we can print out r2.name, r1.pool, and r2.pool. Notice I'm getting little warnings here. We'll fix those later. I'll explain them later. Warning doesn't have to be fixed, but we will want it to be, 100% correct. Okay, so I'm going to paste that 3 more times so that I have 4 print statements in a row. I'm sure you know by now the fastest way to copy and paste is to move your cursor to the beginning of the line and then use the shift down cursor key to select the entire line, then Control C to copy and Control V to paste. Alrighty, R1.name, R2.name, R1.pool is equal to R1 or plus R1.pool. R2.pool is equal to plus R2.pool. Let's print it out. You'd think we'd see Darth Vader, Han Solo, Darth Vader, Han Solo. However, the last 2 values I said are not going to be what we expect. They're both going to be Han Solo. Let's prove it. When I run it, since it's the first time I've run it, and it was built with Maven, it wants to know what the main class is. Well, the main class is Lecture D. I'm going to remember that so that every time I open this project, if I open it again, it will still know what the main class is. That's the point of this question. Select main class. It builds it, and it runs, okay. R1 is Darth Vader. R2 is name. Occupant is Han Solo. R1's pool is Han Solo. R2 pool Han Solo. And what in the heck happened? we only have one pool that's shared by all the rooms. So when we give it a different name, it's changed for both objects. That is not a textbook perfect definition, but it's an okay way to think about it for now. Changing this string changes it for every instance. I hope that makes sense. Since this is an instance variable, every instance can have a different name. Since this is a class variable, all the instances share this same string. So when you change it to Han Solo, it shows both R1.pool and R2.pool being Han Solo. Han Solo kicked Darth Vader out of the pool. He's pretty brave. Okay, now what about these warnings? What we see here is it says accessing static field pool. All right, what that means is this is not a part of any instance, so we don't have to attach it. We don't have to reference it by its instance name. And it's okay to do that, but you'll get a warning because the correct way to access it is via the class name. We should say room.pool and then room.pool. Because this is the name of the class. Static variables, static methods, static members should be referenced by the class name and not by a particular instance. I don't know if I'm going to leave that as R1.pool and R2.pool or not. Yeah, why not leave it alone for now? Okay, so now it is correct. Now the warnings have gone away. Yeah, build it, hammer and broom, just to prove the point. Then green arrow, make sure it works. It worked, right? We have two occupants, Darth Vader and Han Solo. However, we only have one pool. All the rooms share. Now that implies something, which I will get to in just a moment. For one thing, it implies that we don't need to print this out twice, right? Room.pool, we only need to print it out once. I'm going to leave it the way it is, though. Just going to add a comment that this prints the same thing as the prior print statement, because room.pool is shared by all instances of the room class. Parentheses, all objects in parentheses. So, if this is not prefixed by a reference name, do we even need any references created? Do we even need any objects at all to access room.pool? What would happen if we commented out room 1 and room 2 completely? Let's find out. I'm going to comment out the creation of room 1, the assignment of it. Later on, I'll come down here and comment out the printing of it. I'm going to comment out room 2, creation and assignment. I'm going to comment out the printing of room 1 and room 2. All right. Now, if I deleted all that, don't delete it. I'm going to undo this. All right. There we go. We have accessed room.pool without a single instance. So, technically speaking, it's not true that when you change a class variable for one object, it changes it for all objects. That would kind of imply that it goes to a separate block of memory and it changes it for each one. Instead, every object shares the same memory, which is declared outside all of the objects. Maybe that sounds a little esoteric. If you have taken C++ or C, it's the same thing as a global variable. A global variable is one that is declared outside all objects, outside all functions, outside all methods, outside of everything. So for your entire C++ project, there's only one instance of that variable anywhere in the project. You declare it in one file and then you access it. Now Java doesn't have the idea of a global variable because you don't declare data outside of a class. You know, everything is a class in Java. You declare it in the class, but it creates memory that's outside of any object, any instance of the class. I hope that makes sense. The key thing to remember is that you access your class variable, your static variable, using the name of the class, not the name of an object. That means you don't have to create any objects at all in order to access it. Or you can create 1,000 objects, but if you change it, it's changed for all of the objects. Static methods inside a class can only access other static methods or members, variables inside the same class. So, if I create another method here, let's just do one called hello, and I say public void hello, parentheses in parentheses, open curly, close curly. I didn't have to add the close curly. If you now have two close curlies, delete one of them. System.out.println, parentheses quote, hello, comma, space, end quote, plus name, in parentheses, semicolon. Now that implies that we have a name variable. So up above that, let's create a string. String space name equals citizen. Hello, citizen. Right. End quote, semicolon. All right, we have a method. Oh, I said I was going to undo some stuff, and I told you not to do it. I'm going to cut this so that I can undo everything I need to undo and then paste it again after I'm done undoing. Excuse me while I hit Control-Z a whole bunch of times. Hope you didn't follow along. If you did, undo all that business. Uncomment everything. All right. Go back up and do that again. This is a member of the lecture class, so it needs to be inside the curly brace for the lecture class. There we go. I'm going to add a little comment. This is the end of hello method. I'm going to come down here to the curly braces at the bottom. This is the end of the main method. This is the end of the lecture D class, or I could call it the main class. Alrighty then, look, I have this shiny new method. I'm going to call it. Not going to work. Hello, parentheses in parentheses. We are in a static context. We cannot access non-static, non-class members of the same class. So to get this to work, we're going to have to call it static. Public static void hello. That works. All right. Just prove it works. Let's just run it. Make sure I have not introduced any syntax errors. Up at the top, we say hello, citizen. All right. One purpose. I mean, you don't use class members and class methods all that often to begin with, right? Typically, you want your object, you want each object to have its own memory so that it can carry its own data around. Each room is going to have a different person in it. Each circle has its own radius. Each library book has its own title and publisher and number of pages. But one thing you might want to do is create a scanner that's shared by all the methods of this class so that we don't have to create a new scanner inside both main and hello. Because you may have noticed that if you're going to ask for input inside multiple methods, you have to create multiple scanners. And that doesn't hurt anything, but it's silly to do that. So I'm going to create a class scanner, a static scanner, public static, capital S, scanner, parentheses, equals new, capital S, scanner, parentheses, system with a capital S, system.in, I know you know how to do that, in parentheses, semicolon. And I forgot to give it a name. Public static scanner SC, right? Or whatever you feel like calling your scanner. IN or input or whatever. All right, now that scanner can be shared by these two methods. Let's prove it. Let's ask for our favorite character's name in Star Wars. Kind of got a Star Wars theme going on here. So let's ask them for the name. System.out.println, parentheses, who is your favorite Star Wars character? Now let's change that a little bit. How about who are we greeting? Or what is your name? What is your name? Tell you what, I'm just going to make it print rather than println. After the question mark, I'm going to put space, space, greater than. Just a personal quirk. I like to indicate where they need to type. Now let's let them type it in. Name equals sc dot next, capital L, next line, parentheses and parentheses. That way they can enter a first and a last name. Dot next would only let us enter, a first name, one string, without a space. All right, let's test it out, make sure it works before we continue the example. Hammer and broom. Green arrow. And yes, technically you can skip doing the hammer and broom and just do the green arrow. What is your name? My name is Joe Bob. If I scroll up, hello Joe Bob. All right, we know how to use a scanner. That's not a miracle. But what's cool is we can go to main and reuse that scanner. What if we don't want Darth Vader to move into that room? What if we want our favorite character to move into that room? Let's do that. We need a character's name. So string space favorite semicolon. Let's ask the question. This is underneath the hello method inside the main class. System.out.print parentheses quote, who is your favorite Star Wars character? Question mark. Space, space, greater than, end quote, semicolon. Let's let them type it in. Favorite equals sc.next line, capital L, just like before. You would be getting errors on the scanners if we had not added that class. If you forgot that, you can always click on the error. The only one you should ever choose is add import until you're absolutely sure you need to choose one of the other ones. Just for now, rule those out and always only choose add import. All right, but you didn't need to do that because we already had added java.util.asterisk. So that's just a point of information which you probably already know. All righty, scrolling back down to main, Darth Vader did not move in to the first room. Instead, our favorite character moved into R1. So R1.name equals favorite. I just changed that one. So far, our changes to main have been to add those 4 lines. Let's run it. We will see that we were able to use a scanner that was shared between these methods. What is your name? My name's Jeff. Hello, Jeff. Who's your favorite Star Wars character? My favorite Star Wars character is R2-D2. Poor guy doesn't get much time in the newest movies. There we go. R1's name is R2-D2. R2's name, yeah, R2. Anyways, our second occupant's name is Han Solo, and there's only room for one pool, and so when Han Solo went into the pool, that's all there was. Nobody else was in there. All right, I hope that's a clear enough explanation of what a class member is versus an instance member. A class member is part of the class, not any instance. You can access it without creating an instance. As a matter of fact, you should not use an instance name. You should not use r1.pool, r2.pool. You should use the class name to access the class member. Class members are defined with the static keyword. Instance members, let's add a space, are a part of the instance, right, object. They differ or can differ on an object-by-object basis. They differ on an object-by-object basis. While class members are shared by all objects of that class. It's kind of hinted at by saying that. Maybe I'll move that line up here. You should use the class name to access the class member. Class members are all shared by all objects of that class. Class members are static. Instance members are not static. You do not use that keyword. Class members is a static keyword. Instance members are not the static keyword. I know that's bad English. Class members are declared with the static keyword. Instance members are declared without the static keyword. That's better English. All right, that needs to be the end of this lecture. The lecture went on, but this is what we have time for right now, 30 minutes. I will record the other lecture later today, so I can upload it as well. So the homework. We need a little bit of a homework assignment for this, don't we? Create a class named Book. Members of the class, instance members, are strings. One of them is called title, and the other one's called author. Then we also have a class member, which is also a string. Class member is which school owns this book. And we're going to say that all the books here are owned by the same school. So, then have the main method in your main class create 3 different books. I don't care if you use input or just assign them, right? With 3 different titles and authors. Assign the school as well to Rose State College. So assign book.school to Rose State College equal Rose State College. Print out each book's title and author, and then print out the school member as well. Remember that a class method is declared as static. Okay, that's the homework. Hope that makes sense. You don't have to use a scanner. You don't have to ask for input. That's enough. All right. Second lecture forthcoming. Second half of this lecture. Not going to be talking about class and instance members for this one. We're going to finish up the chapter. This is hinted at in the chapter, but it doesn't go into a lot of detail, and we need to understand it to be good Java programmers.